Hey, this is Daniel from the Blue Corner, and today I'm going to do my first ever top 10 list. Well, yes, I've done other top 10 lists before, so I don't really mean like this is my first time doing it. What I actually mean is I'm going to go into a time machine, go back in time to when I first started the hobby, and think about when I played those 10 games that I was like, yes, I can make a top 10 list because I've played 10 games that I absolutely adored. Now, not all these games have held up over time, but some of them have. But let's go back in that time machine, travel with me, and let's go find out what young Daniel had on his top 10 top 10 board games of all time. Number 10 on the list is Chrononauts. That is a little card game that you would set up like a grid, and there was a timeline. And there were certain aspects of the timeline that could change. Like it maybe you prevented Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated. You can flip over that card and it would reveal, and it would also flip over other cards in the timeline as well. So there was these linchpin events that would kind of unravel other things as you played. And your goal in the game was you were a time traveler trying to get back to your timeline. So you wanted to make sure the events were as they needed to be so you can return to your home. So maybe that means you needed to prevent Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated, or maybe you needed to actually have Reagan be assassinated, or something like that. There was just a bunch of different options. There were some couple other expansions that kind of expanded all the way up to the Bush versus Gore years, because I remember one of the cards was Gore won the presidency, Al Gore, that is. So yeah, it was just a fun little like take that type of game. You were flipping over cards that would help you. You'd flip over cards that would hurt other people. Some events you didn't care about, some events you did care about. If you enjoy history and kind of like thinking through logical conclusions of if this happened in history, then maybe something else would have been different, then Chrononauts is actually pretty cool. I haven't played it in a very long time. I might still like it, but it's pretty take that. So if you're not a big fan of take that games, then you may not like Chrononauts, but hey, I loved it at the time. All right, my number nine is Killer Bunnies and the Quest for the Golden Carrot. Yes, when I first got into the hobby, I really loved Take That games. You'll be, yeah, and my number one will show that. But before I get to my number one, I gotta talk about my number nine, and my number nine is Killer Bunnies. This is a game that required you to gather as many carrots as possible, and then at the end of the game, only one carrot was the actual winner. I really love the concept of this game. I love the fact that I could get 10 carrots and my opponent could get one carrot, but he could still win the game. But it was very divisive. People actually hated that about Killer Bunnies. But I thought it was pretty clever. But other than that, it was kind of a little take that game. It also had a cool mechanic of you place the cards like in the front row, back row, and the third row. I think there's third row. It's been a while since I played it, but it would take time for those cards to actually flip over and to be revealed. So you always had some kind of ability to react to what was coming up. So Killer Bunnies in the Quest for the Golden Carrot, there was a lot of them out there. I played a couple of them. I got like 5 sets, I think it was, but it was one that kind of went away as soon as I started getting more and more games. So that's why this one is lower on my list. Killer Bunnies and the Quest for the Golden Carrot. All right, my number eight game is a very popular game, one that you will likely have heard of, and that is Apples to Apples. Apples to Apples was the first of those, matching two words and everybody laughing type of game. And man, when that came out, that was so much fun. Everyone loved playing it. It was very pop culture oriented in the first set. I remember there was like a Rush Limbaugh card, and there was like, uh, a Tom Cruise card. There were actually like yeah, interesting pop culture things. I really like interacting with like trivia and pop culture. So Apples to Apples really sang to me. And I played this for a very long time. This was probably my go-to game in that party realms until Codenames came out. So I really did hold on to it for a very long time. And I still enjoy playing this game with my kids. We have Apples to Apples Junior, and it just makes us laugh so hard when you compare a completely absurd action or word with some kind of verb, and it just gets the entire family and the whole table laughing. Yeah, there are games out there that have done it better since Apples to Apples, but it being the first, I was pretty happy with it, and it definitely was one we played a lot. My number 7 game is Marvel Heroes. This one was extra special for me because my wife actually bought it as an anniversary gift. So a lot of these on my list are actually going to be ones that we were when I was in high school or early years in college. This may be the first one that I actually played a lot when I was married because my wife bought me this game and we just played it together a lot actually. I kind of wish I got to play it with more people, but what was really cool about this is you got to play a team of heroes. There were the X-Men, there were the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and then the Marvel Knights, which is like Daredevil and Spider-Man and more street level heroes. And you played them trying to uh, accomplish different tasks, which were like defeating headlines. That's what it was. Defeating headlines, which was, villains attacking, robbing a bank, all that stuff. But kind of the catch of this game, which was kind of cool, is that everybody had a nemesis, and the nemesis was actually played by your opponent. So whenever a nemesis scenario came up, your opponent got to decide which cards to play. So it kind of now it wasn't very robust when you were playing the nemesis. So don't get me wrong; it's not like you were like had tons of crazy decisions, but you got some decisions. So you were playing this game of defeating headlines, and all of a sudden you were like, "Ooh, I get to attack you. That's kind of fun." I'm going to be Doctor Doom, even though I'm playing the X-Men, but I also get to play Doctor Doom trying to stop the Fantastic Four. So really clever game. Does it hold up today? Probably not. While I do want to play it more and more, there were some goofy things going on in that game. Like there were these symbols that were in the different locations, and I still to this day have no idea why the symbols were there, except for maybe a potential like expansion. Also, you had to like put two heroes on the board, so there were like little places to put them there. But then you can keep some off your board, and if they were on the board or off the board, they could do different things, which felt kind of tacked on. Didn't make a lot of sense in the moment, so it doesn't really hold up. But it was one that I played a lot with my wife, so it has a special place for me. It will never leave my shelf, no matter what I actually feel about the game, because it was my first anniversary gift, so can't get rid of that. Hey, so I'm kind of a bonehead sometimes. Apparently, I totally skipped my number 6, so I'm recording this a day later. So I'm just going to insert it right here. So uh, you didn't need to know that, but I just thought, well, it looks a little different, so I just want to let you guys know. So, anyways, my number 6 is a collectible card game. Probably not one that you're expecting, though. It wasn't Magic, wasn't Pokemon. Instead, it was Versus. That's right. This game, Versus, is a Marvel themed game where you had two ranks of heroes and you were just attempting to deal damage to the other side. They would later come out with this verse system in a non collectible format, and kind of change a little bit of the rules. But when this first came out, it was the first card game I was just thrilled with. I loved everything about this game, and I thought the theme came through very well. I actually kind of went all in. It was the very first card game I actually went all in on, and had a pretty good deck, had some good runs with it. But I was in college at the time, and I was between my hometown of Junction and living in college, and I lost my cards. I have no idea what happened to them. So later on, I found somebody who was selling their entire set, so I got my hands on it again. I haven't played it since, and I probably never will. But I really love the concept of versus. It had the like and a character would have an attack and a defense, kind of like Magic, but it just felt a little bit different than Magic. Maybe it was the two ranks and the range and the melee that was different, and the flying. The flying can attack over in from the back row because it can fly, and range can shoot from the front row to the back row. There was just unique little things with it that way. The one that came out later, how that one would be a lot different is you would actually have a character that you would build your deck around, and the goal was to kill the character. So, also, I think the characters would protect each other. So if you had somebody in the front row, then the back row person could not be attacked. So that was a cool little catch at the time too, especially at that time. I mean, it was largely just Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! So this was a fun change of pace, and hey, Marvel themed. So you know I'm gonna like it. So my number six versus two-player card game, whatever you want to call it. Number five is a game that you might have heard of as well. Actually, from here on out, you probably heard of these. The number five is Runebound, second edition, I believe. Runebound was one of the first games I bought when I discovered 31st Century and Olathe, Kansas. It was a game store there, and it just looked like a good old Dungeons and Dragons type of game. Looked, high fantasy. You get to play as a ranger or cleric, but they were like not ranger and clerics; they were other things. But you know what they were, and you were just walking through the landscape via rolling dice that would have terrain types. Those terrain types told you which terrain you were allowed to go. So it was kind of like a roll and move, to be honest. And then you would get to go to different locations of like green dots, yellow dots, red dots. I think there was 4 dots, so there's another one in there. And that was the difficulty of the monsters you were going to engage. Well, when you get in there, you can fight the monster, get equipment, and power yourself up. This game we love to play, me and my college friends. We played it all the time, but we never actually beat the game or finished a game because it just took us so many hours to play the game. Not sure if it was meant to be that way, but man, it took us hours upon hours to play it. And what we would normally do is we would be like, you know what? I think we are all equipped well enough. You can just go to a red encounter if you want to, and the first person who beats a dragon wins. It was fun. It was enjoyable time. Again, I think if I played it now again, I might appreciate it at a different level. But even in those my early days, I actually really enjoyed it. Except we never finished it, so that was kind of weird. But Runebound, pretty solid. And my number four game is a game that my mom got me when I first got into the hobby. She was like, "Oh, I know Daniel likes to play board games, and I'm gonna get him one." So we were at Walmart, and she saw this game, and she was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Sure." And that is Liar's Dice, or what I will refer to it as Pirates Dice, because it was based on the Pirates of the Caribbean's movie. They apparently played it in there. I don't remember that part of the movie, but apparently it's true because this, and I've also heard other people say it. But Liar's Dice is a really fun game that I still like today. I'm pretty sure it's still in my top 50 games of all time. So with Liar's Dice, you have 5 dice, and you probably have 3 other people playing. So there are 20 dice on the table total. And you roll the dice, and then you're trying to guess how many of a number is on the table. So if I roll the dice and I have 3 threes in my cup, I might say, I think on the table there are 7 threes. Well, the next player also has a lot of threes, so they're like, oh yeah, there's definitely 7 threes. So I'm going to say 8 threes. Well, then the next person, they don't have any threes. So they can choose to act like they have threes and be like, yep, there are so many threes on this table. Or you can increase the number. Like instead of saying threes, you can say fours. You can say, I think there's 7 4s on the table. And then everyone's looking at their dice again, and the 2 people who had a lot of threes actually have a lot of fours too, and they're like, "Sweet, this works." And then the next person is like, "I don't know, I only have sixes, so I'm gonna say I think there's 6 6s or yeah, 7 6s." And then I now it gets back to me. I have no sixes. The other person probably didn't have sixes, so I'm gonna call it on this guy. I'm gonna say I don't think there's 7 6s. So we all pick up our cups, count the numbers, and if that person, if there wasn't 7 6s, then that person loses dice. If there was 7 6s or more, I lose a die, and you play to the last person standing. Love Liar's Dice. It's still on my top 10 list or top 50 list. Good game. All right, my number three. I loved World of Warcraft in college. Played it way too much. Almost ruined my marriage. Now, it wasn't going to ruin my marriage, but I did even play it a lot when we first got married, and she wasn't too happy about it. Anybody who's played online games, you know how that story goes. It's just better if you avoid it if you have no self control. I have no self control. I should have never been there, but I digress. Because I really liked World of Warcraft, I saw Warcraft 3, the board game, and thought, I have to get this. And I did enjoy Warcraft 3 as well. I played my fair share of that one too. But War Warcraft is where it's at for me. But the Warcraft 3 board game, I absolutely loved. Made my wife and my girlfriend at the time play it often with me. And it is an area control game, and it plays very similar to the video game, like surprisingly similar to the video game. It did a really good job at porting over what you're doing, that real time strategy, and bringing it over to a board game. It's just area control, but the map is kind of tight, so you're automatically having to run into each other. There are resources that are depleted in the map, so you are actually fighting over these resources that are depleted. And like most area control games I enjoy, it's your goal is to get victory points, not necessarily to annihilate the other person. So you're capturing locations which give you the victory points. So you're again encouraged to move out and to encounter each other. There are four different factions, and they're all asymmetric. They seem to play well. I didn't feel like one was overbalanced or one was overwrought than the other one. So I think it was pretty fair. Also, there is a card element as well, which was really cool. So you can cast spells during the battle. You get to draw a couple cards, and then you would play them whenever it was appropriate. Sometimes you could generate resources with those cards. Sometimes you could just zap someone dead. Fun game. It played very similar to the video game, so that I was super impressed with. So that was my number three, Warcraft 3, the board game. Oh, that wasn't on purpose. All right, my number two game probably could have been my number one, but if I was lying, I would have put it at number one because I would want you guys to think this was my number one when it really just kind of wasn't. So my number two is HeroClix. I was all in on this game from senior year and on into college. It is, if you haven't played it, it is just a little skirmish game where you get to play as superheroes, either Marvel or DC. And you know me, I'm definitely a Marvel guy, so I had all the Marvel stuff for a lot of the sets, and you build up a team. It didn't have to be all X-Men, all Fantastic Four, but you could because you get little like synergy bonuses. But you could just put together any ragtag group of figures that you want, and it had the click system, so all the stats were in the base. And as you took damage, you would spin the click, which would then reduce your damage or maybe increase your damage. Like I think the Hulk, I think he got more powerful as he got hit. So there were just very thematic, really interesting like battles that would come out of this. One of my best memories from this is my wife when we were just dating. She actually joined a tournament with me and she actually won the tournament. It's like the like it was I was super excited for her. It was essentially she had all invisible women, and they would make this not all, I don't know who their attacker was, but essentially she had enough visible women who kept making a barrier, and she just kind of marched through the map with this barrier and then took her big baddie and would shoot people down. So it was a good strategy. She figured it out herself and she ended up winning the tournament. And I was pretty excited for her. So I still have my HeroClix stuff, but I haven't played it in years. I even about 8 years ago, I found somebody selling their collection of it. So I even like tripled the size of HeroClix I have right now. I don't know what to do with it because I don't think I'll ever get to play it again, but I do have a lot of it, so I would also like to play it. Also got all my maps. It came with these paper maps, but I got them all laminated, so I have a bunch of all these laminated maps to play the game. So super excited about that. Also, fun story about HeroClix. So 3 years ago, I'm working at my bank, and some guy walks up to me and goes, "Hey, did you used to play HeroClix?" And I was like, "Well, yes, I did." And he's like, "When you were in college, we played all the time together, and that was my friend Thane. And 3 years ago, we reunited, and it was funny because I felt like I was just a, just a nerdy little kid at the time. And I was like, oh, look at that guy. He knows how to play HeroClix and he's like an adult. And now he's like a good friend of mine. So that was kind of a fun little memory. And he might be watching this. So there you go, Thane. Glad we ran into each other 3 years ago and reunited over HeroClix. All right. And my number one in this game defined my high school and my college years. I do want to put a little caveat here. I would say it was Dungeons and Dragons or Champions Hero System, but I've left those off the chart. So while those would have been it, I'm going to stick with just like the board game stuff. And I played this game as much as I probably played D&D and Champions, and that is Munchkin. When that game came out, I think in the year 2000, I was still in high school, and we played the crud out of it every single Friday night. We would play it before or after D&D, or if not enough people showed up, we would bust that out. We played it in the back of a van driving to Kansas City to watch WWE Raw. That we played it at any opportunity we could. And I, of course, took that to college with me, and I started to gather up every single set, and I started to spread the love of Munchkin. And all of my college friends, we all loved Munchkin. And this accumulated in this most epic Munchkin moment ever. And that is, we played with every single set of Munchkin with 16 people. And what we did is we split up into two tables. So we had 8 people over here and 8 people over there, and each person got to pick their own deck to deal out of. And then you just played normal Munchkin with your own decks and with your own treasure. So if you teamed up with somebody, you were like, "Hey, I want to team up with the superhero because I want some powers." And since I'm playing the the high fantasy, I don't have any powers over here. So I'm gonna team up with you so that I can potentially get a power. And you're like, "Okay." So it kind of had some extra fun leverage there. And then there was like classes and races, and there's some other things too. I forget now, but still, they were making some interesting combos there. Well, now this is the other thing. We had 2 tables, and the way we interacted with those 2 tables is you would say, "Hey, Russell's about to win. Does anybody have a +10 they will give me?" And someone says, "I'll give you a +10, but I want your sword of geekiness." And you're like, "Okay." And then you would trade with the other table just like randomly. They're sitting there playing their own game. So now somebody over here might actually have like a sword, and nobody else at the table has a sword, but one person does because they made a trade with the person at the other table. It was so much fun. It was so epic. It was, and we did a lot of crazy things like that. We also had this moment where in Munchkin it actually says you can cheat if you get away with it. We had to ban that rule because we had a friend who kept cheating and he was damaging our cards and he wasn't getting away with it. And we are like, dude, you're really bad at cheating. You can't do this anymore. You have to stop. No one else can cheat. And he's like, fine, whatever. So no, Munchkin, if you don't know, it's just a take that game. Your first to 10, level 10 wins. And there's a lot of negotiation and backstabbing your friends. It's teaming up with somebody and at the right moment, thrusting your dagger in their back so that you can take the advantage and get all the treasure. It's very just goofy fun. And that's also the other point of it, too, is that it is supposed to be just slapstick humor. I love the card combos. It just makes me laugh to this day. I would probably play it more, but there's not a lot of people, Munchkin has a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, so I don't really bring it out very often. But I wouldn't be opposed to playing it again. It was such a pivotal like game in my life, and even the criticism people levy at it that oh, it's just a race to level 10, and once everybody's at 10, you just play your cards to stop the person from getting to 10, and then whoever plays the last card, the next person wins. And yeah, sure, you could water it down to that level, but there's so much more enjoyment out of that game than just waiting till someone hits level 10 and stopping them. So, and also, if you let someone get build up so big that when they get to level 9, you can't stop them from getting level 10. So that is something else to consider too. So there's more potential depths to this game than a lot of people give it credit for, but whatever. It's fine. But that was a definitive game in my board gaming life. Now, if I made another list here, my next list I would make is the first 10 games that I loved when I dived into the hobby. That's what I like to refer to it because I was definitely in the hobby here. I was going to game stores, I was playing these games, I was dabbling around with, Ticket to Ride and Catan here and there. But it wasn't until I got Sentinels of the Multiverse that the doors just blew open and I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "What? I need all of the games." And that is when I got fanatical about board games. But this list was when I just got into the hobby. So these are the 10 games that got me into the hobby, that had me staying around until that Sentinels in the Multiverse showed up and busted the doors open for me and changed my life. But there you go, guys. This is my time traveling moment. This is my top 10, first top 10 I've ever done list Sure, I don't know what to call it. First top 10 games of all time. There we go. The first top 10 games of all time. What was your first top 10 games of all time? Can you think of your 10 games that you played and loved at the very beginning of your hobby? And maybe it was Sentinels in the Multiverse. That's fine. Mine just happened to go back a little bit further, but if yours was only like 5 years ago, that's fine too. What were those first 10 games that just blew you away, and if somebody had asked you at a given moment, what's your top 10 games, you would have been able to like, oh, these 10 games I played, they're all great. I love them. What would that be? Let me know in the comments below and let me think. Would you have liked to play with old Daniel? I don't know. I probably would. Though I'd say half of these games I probably would only want to play like once or twice, but I don't know. Well, that may not be correct. I might like all these games, but whatever. Let me know, and let me know your top 10. Until next time, guys, I'm going to see you around the board.